the bulk of the population today is this intelligent, more or less intelligent bipedal, right? And with a vertical spine, and who pushes the buttons on TV and drives a car, etc., etc. Now, there is some backthrow. That is, there are some people here in this area, very few people who are still gorilla-like. That is, they are hairy. They beat their chest when they see their neighbors and a few other things. And then we have other people who are here in this corner, very few of them, who are very highly developed, because we say that evolution is now pushing mankind in this direction, away from the gorilla types towards the very highly evolved people. At this point, we're here. What's going to happen maybe 1 million years from now, 500,000 years from now? This curve is going to shift. It's going to shift like this. That is, the bulk of the population will be very, very highly evolved. We've gone away altogether from the gorilla types, no more gorillas. And what we have here now is the average man is now the retarded person in evolutionary terms. The bulk of the population is extremely, very, very highly evolved. And the cutting edge of evolution here, these are very, very highly evolved people. We can't even imagine what kind of person that will be. He may not have a physical body. What's the habitat, so to speak, of this group here? Well, you just go out and you find them. They're all over the place. The habitat of this group here, what do you think? What do you think you find these people here?
I suspect you would find them in universities. You'd find the people who are very bright, people who are in the leading edge of professions. It's an intellectual thing.
Well, I suggest that you find them in mental hospitals, in nut houses. And the reason for that is that these people, they live in a different reality, in a reality which is very changed, and few of them are adapted to live in this reality. So naturally, they can't function very well. So the only safe place, only good place for them would be the mental hospital, unless they can integrate their different view of reality with their daily lives. Now, if they can integrate it, then we have people like Newton, like Darwin, like Faraday. These are the so-called geniuses.
The thing that I'm not certain that we have talked about is, what is it that is evolving?
Let's put it this way. The nervous system is the thing that is evolving, and the nervous system is supported by a skeleton of bones and muscles and tissue, etc., etc. Now, the nervous system is that thing that gives us the picture of our realities. That is, our realities, that reality which you see all around you, the flowers and the chairs and the microphones and the teacup, is given to us by our senses. Yeah. We don't see light which is beyond UV and beyond infrared. We hear only a limited scale of vibrations, like, for instance, we hear anywhere from 52 to 20,000 maximum. In other words, all our senses are limited. These limited senses, we naturally are seeing through a very narrow kind of tube or very narrow slit in the total reality there is. Now, as you're evolving, what happens is that slit opens up more and more and more. So you see more and more of that reality, and we assume that we see different realities. They're not very different realities, but rather a very extended, broad view of one very large reality.
This experience allowed Huxley to closely examine the true nature of the human mind, which is that its function seems primarily to narrow perception, not widen it. Or as philosopher Charlie Broad writes, the function of the brain and nervous system and sense organs is in the main eliminative and not productive. Each person is at each moment capable of remembering all that has ever happened to him, and of perceiving everything that is happening everywhere in the universe. The function of the brain and nervous system is to protect us from being overwhelmed and confused by this mass of largely useless and irrelevant knowledge, by shutting out most of what we should otherwise perceive or remember at any moment, and leaving only that very small and special selection, which is likely to be practically useful. In other words, the mind can be thought of as a reducing valve, which constrains the totality of our perception to that which is actually relevant to survival. We are sentient of a huge number of perceptions at any given time, but only a tiny proportion of these ever become conscious. So while we are constantly perceiving a wide range of experiences, our brains filter most of this out. This wider field of awareness, to which we can potentially be conscious, is called by Huxley mind at large. And the mind acts as a sort of filter to prevent all of these perceptions from overwhelming us. To make biological survival possible, mind at large has to be funneled through the reducing valve of the brain and nervous system. What comes out at the other end is a measly trickle of the kind of consciousness which will help us to stay alive on the surface of this particular planet. Mescaline, as well as other psychedelic compounds and shamanic techniques, appear to open the so-called reducing valve, allowing our minds to focus on details that would have otherwise been filtered out. People who have psychedelic experiences report having an unusual interest in subtle details, which they may have never noticed before. Normally, the mind does not pay any attention to these insignificant details, but the unrestrained mind can't help but be fascinated by, for instance, the veins of a leaf, the individual grains in a clump of sand, or the individual hairs on your skin. Indeed, much of what is experienced during a psychedelic episode isn't necessarily a hallucination. It is simply your mind paying more attention to what you hadn't noticed before. You can make note of many things right now, which, although you perceive them, often do not come to your attention.
And he came up with what he called the Kundalini syndrome model. In other words, when this energy in the spine rises, the harmony occurs where the vibration turns into the sine wave at 7 cycles per second, or 7 hertz, as compared to the regular disrupted pattern. And as an engineer, he looked at the body in terms of vibrating systems or oscillators. And in this case, there are 5: the heart aorta system, the brain itself, a cavity in the brain which is filled with fluid, a ventricle, and then the brain itself, the sensory cortex, and then all this results in an electromagnetic field around the head. A system which comes into harmony within itself becomes more powerful than others, and it will entrain, this is another term he used, it will entrain or pull after itself a system that is out of harmony. So once this oscillator or resonating system comes into harmony, it will trigger the rest one after the other. It's a domino effect. So as the heart pumps blood through the aorta, and he called the aorta the biggest plumbing in the body. So it's a tremendous impact on the body, and it shakes the body so that it vibrates. It hits the bifurcation into the legs, and a certain plane wave is reflected up. The next pulse comes down, and the plane wave and the pulse clash, and it creates a disruption in the body. When the harmonious 7 hertz vibration is set up, it seems that the heart and the lungs begin to talk to each other, and they begin to work in harmony, so that a pulse comes down and waits for the reflection to come up, and they both go up together, and then the next pulse comes down, and there is no clash occurring anymore, and the body goes into resonance, triggering the next oscillator, which is the brain. And looking at the head, again from the point of view of engineering, it's a rigid box resting on a resilient column, which is the spine. What happens is, as the body goes up and down, the skull is vibrated, and the brain, which is a gel-like substance, is floating in a fluid, the cerebrospinal fluid, so that each time the body goes up, it's hitting the skull and then goes down, and so up and down it goes, and it creates a plane wave within the brain. The brain has a characteristic called piezoelectric, which means that when it's stimulated mechanically, it develops an electromagnetic field around it. which is this field right here eventually. So this is the second oscillator which triggers the third. This is the fluid-filled cavity in the brain called ventricle. And due to this regular vibration of 7 cycles or 7 hertz per second, a standing wave is established in the ventricle, which again creates a very harmonious frequency. And this in turn triggers the sensory cortex. This is a cross-section of the brain. And this is a cross-section of the third ventricle filled with fluid. On top of the third ventricle is a drum-like surface with a bundle of nerve fiber crossing it, which connects the right and left brain hemispheres. And this is very important because as the fluid vibrates harmoniously, it activates this nerve fiber, and it harmonizes the 2 brain hemispheres. And we know that consciousness opens up when the synchronization of the functioning of the 2 hemispheres occurs. And then a certain current is established in the sensory cortex in the lobe of the brain. And as I said before, all this results in an electromagnetic field around the head, so that the head actually becomes an antenna capable of sending out and receiving information which it could not do otherwise. And in that state, higher perceptions become possible. And this was Ben's theory, that through the mechanism of Kundalini and the resonant state of the body, higher perceptions become available.
In alternate worlds, words aren't the primary communication method. There, consciousness forms express themselves directly, vibrationally, through symbols, imagery, and sensations that communicate much faster and more profoundly than any spoken language. When your consciousness travels during sleep, it contacts these symbolic messages. This explains why many dreams appear mysterious. They're not addressing the brain's logic, but the soul's wisdom. Envision that each appearing symbol, a key, a bridge, a storm, a mirror, represents an energy code, a package of concentrated information designed to activate something within you. A memory, an insight, a transformation. This is the language of the higher unconscious, a language that instead of describing the world, creates realities, touches being, reconfigures destinies. Therefore, when you dream of powerful, recurring, or emotionally charged imagery, pay attention. What matters isn't so much what the symbol appears to mean to the rational mind. What matters is what it makes resonate within you. An opening door may not simply be a door. It may be the living representation of a new pathway your soul is prepared to traverse. An accompanying animal may reflect a forgotten inner strength requiring reactivation. A storm may signal a deep emotional purification already occurring, even if your mind still resists. Interpreting this language requires less analysis and more sensitivity. It requires feeling more than thinking, welcoming images as sacred visitors, message bearers arriving from your being's core. A powerful practice for this involves maintaining a dream journal. Recording symbols, emotions, and details immediately upon awakening creates a living bridge between the invisible world and the material world.
Getting back into the benefits of humming also releases melatonin. So if you're having trouble sleeping, you can hum and actually release melatonin. At the same time, you're bringing your nervous system down into rest and digest, where it actually needs to be for you to fall asleep. And if you combine it with Hemisync, then you're also getting the benefits of brainwave entrainment to help you drift off to sleep. So it releases melatonin. You can hum yourself to sleep. You can hum others to sleep. I've done this. In both cases, I've done this. Humming also releases oxytocin. You may be familiar with it. And maybe this is why I got so obsessed with humming in the first place, because I would finish like 15, 20, 30 minutes of humming and just feel so blissed out. And it's really quite nice. Humming is also breath work, and part of humming is that you're taking a big breath and you're retaining a lot of that breath for additional heartbeats, and you're just doing a very slow, long, extended exhale along with the hum. And you're retaining that extra oxygen, number one, so you're actually getting a lot more oxygen absorption into the blood, but also humming is something that is used by respiratory therapists to get the bad air out of the lungs. And for people just going about their day, not really thoughtfully breathing, consciously breathing, I think the average is somewhere around 40% of the air in your lungs is just kind of stagnating and sitting there. So humming can actually help you push out a lot of that stagnant air. And then you take another big breath, you do another round of humming, you're getting additional oxygen, and you're retaining that oxygen because you're doing a long, slow, extended exhale. So it's just staying in your lungs a lot longer. Basically just nourish your body with more oxygen. And we're not done yet. There's more benefits to therapeutic humming. Sound vibrations can actually reduce physical pain, and they do this by partly blocking pain receptors. That's one mechanism in the body. The sound kind of fills up the nerve endings and prevents that pain signal from making it to your brain. So in that way, you can mitigate some physical pain by sending sound, by creating vibration within the body using the voice. And you don't just have to hum to do this. Like, you could put a really vibratory instrument on your body, such as a buffalo drum, or such as a Tibetan bowl, or there's things like sound tables and sound lounges and sound pillows that you can hold or lay on and get vibration into the body that can be really good for physical pain. But humming is the freest and the easiest way to go about this, especially if you've got pain like headache, pain in the mouth, maybe wisdom teeth were removed, maybe you've got pain in the neck or tense muscles in the neck, or just, things in this area. It's really good because the vibrations are just much stronger in this part of the body. But actually, when you hum and when you speak even, the vibrations from your voice are traveling throughout your entire body. Even if you're not consciously aware of it, they are, and you can attune to those very, very subtle vibrations and actually learn to feel that. But that's for another day. Just be aware that the sound waves actually travel to every part of your body. Another really nice benefit of therapeutic humming, especially as you age, is its benefits for memory and brain health. So the very subtle vibrations from your voice can help to circulate cerebral spinal fluid, which basically, it's an important function in the body for the cerebral spinal fluid to circulate and to move naturally and to flow naturally. And when that fluid stops flowing, that's one of the precursors for a lot of degenerative memory loss types of issues. And there's other ways to get that cerebral spinal fluid to move and flow, but humming is a really, really easy, great way to do it, especially if you combine with binaural beats, brainwave entrainment, Hemisync. That's a really great combo for brain health. And then last but not least, one amazing fact about therapeutic humming is that when your vocal cords are vibrating, they're actually producing small amounts of friction. The friction produces small amounts of heat, and that actually produces small amounts of infrared light. But even though it's low levels of infrared light, that light signature actually travels out and extends out further from the body than the sound waves of your voice.
When you drift into slumber, your pulse diminishes, your muscles unwind, and then you enter sleep. Yet your core essence, the vital force that defines your identity, vanishes completely. What happens to your awareness during the hours your physical form lies dormant? This isn't merely about dreaming. This goes beyond your mind simply organizing daily memories. Ancient knowledge preserved in lost Egyptian scrolls and suppressed Tibetan manuscripts explains why you occasionally awaken possessing answers that weren't there before sleep, feeling as though you've experienced entire lifetimes in mere hours, or carrying mysterious anxieties with unknown origins. This reality is simultaneously terrifying and empowering. As your physical vessel rests, your awareness embarks on journeys. The encounters during these nocturnal expeditions actively reshape your existence, whether you're conscious of it or not. Various societies have named this phenomenon the Great Slumber, while others call it the Gateway of Divinity. However, a document destroyed by church authorities in 1587 revealed its true designation: the compulsory voyage. For every human soul must undertake it. 99% of travelers return from these expeditions with empty hands, not due to lack of access to hidden wisdom, but because nobody taught them how to identify the markers of these experiences. These signs exist within your physical form right now, waiting to help you remember what truly occurs during your sleeping hours, to harness the energy of these realms, and to integrate it into your conscious existence. If you've ever sensed that something far more significant unfolds during nighttime hours, that's your inner knowing calling out. In the coming moments, I'll provide you with the roadmap. You'll discover precisely where your awareness travels each night and how to return with abilities that will transform your earthly experience forever. You may extinguish the lights, wrap yourself in blankets, shut your eyelids, and regulate your breathing, but one aspect of you remains perpetually alert: your consciousness. The fundamental error we've been conditioned to accept is viewing sleep as complete unconsciousness, a necessary shutdown for energy restoration. Yet if this were the complete truth, how would we account for such intense dreams, life-changing encounters, or brilliant inspirations that emerge from apparent nothingness? We've been programmed to limit our existence exclusively to physical reality. Society convinced us that we are merely flesh and bone. But the prohibited manuscript, the one few have courage to examine, exposes a disturbing truth. While the body enters dormancy, consciousness continues its travels. As your heartbeat slows and your muscles release tension, your essence penetrates unseen dimensions of existence. Some traditions refer to these dimensions as astral realms, others as ethereal worlds. The terminology is irrelevant. What's crucial is recognizing that each night you become more liberated than you could imagine. This principle is both straightforward and revolutionary. Sleep serves as a temporary gateway to alternate realities. Your physical form functions like a charging dock. Your consciousness, however, operates like an explorer that cannot be confined. It persists in existing, discovering, and absorbing knowledge. You may have already experienced this phenomenon without recognition, that floating feeling before entering sleep, as though your body grew heavy while you felt weightless, or awakening with fragmented memories of locations you've never visited, yet seem mysteriously recognizable. An ancient mystical saying declares, "Every sleep is a minor death, and every awakening is a minor rebirth." You might have never considered sleep from this perspective, but the truth remains that the moment you close your eyes and surrender to darkness, something within you submits to a profound detachment process. Entering sleep literally means releasing control. You abandon alertness, you release the ego, you let go of your daily persona. Your body operates automatically. Your heart continues pumping, your lungs keep functioning, but your conscious awareness disconnects from the material realm. Within this disconnection, something remarkable occurs. The identical process that happens during death begins manifesting on a reduced scale. Ancient spiritual teachings explain that when we die, our consciousness detaches from the physical form to continue its eternal journey. During sleep, this separation is rehearsed. The distinction lies in sleep maintaining this connection, rather than permanently severing it. An invisible lifeline, recognized across many traditions as the silver thread, preserves this bond. This thread resembles an energetic conduit linking your material body to your living essence. While it stays unbroken, you can depart and return. When it snaps during actual death, the journey becomes permanent. Numerous wise teachers viewed sleeping as preparation for conscious dying. They instructed that individuals who master nightly death, embracing sleep as sacred surrender, approach actual death with serenity, understanding, and clarity. This explains why countless cultures cherished pre-sleep ceremonies, not merely to safeguard the resting body, but to direct the traveling spirit, reminding it of its mission even during states of separation. Perhaps now you grasp something profound. Our inability to recall sleeping experiences doesn't negate their reality. It simply indicates that the chasm between these two states, wakefulness and sleep, remains an unconquered enigma for most of us. However, bridging this gap is achievable. Understanding that sleeping involves minor dying represents the initial step toward living with greater awareness. Those who comprehend the delicacy and magnificence of this nightly passage begin treasuring every night, every dream, every floating sensation as pieces of wisdom far exceeding anything visible during waking hours. Among the lost insights regarding nighttime consciousness exists an ancient technique that few understand, one capable of dramatically enhancing your capacity to recall and navigate your out-of-body journeys: segmented sleep patterns. In historical civilizations, including Greek, Egyptian, and even throughout European medieval periods, human rest naturally separated into two major phases. People would slumber for several hours, awaken during midnight hours for reading, contemplation, or prayer, then return to sleep until dawn. This intermission between sleep segments wasn't viewed as problematic. It was frequently regarded as a holy period. Why does this matter for those seeking to access elevated consciousness during rest? Because the transitional phase between initial and secondary sleep represents one of the most productive zones for out-of-body experiences, conscious dreaming, and spiritual connections. When you naturally awaken during midnight hours, your brain remains submerged in slow brainwaves, theta and delta frequencies, while your logical mind begins displaying signs of alertness. At this junction between deep rest and conscious awareness, the boundary separating worlds grows thinner. You haven't fully awakened, yet you're no longer completely submerged in unconsciousness. You're positioned within a doorway. Seasoned practitioners of consciousness projection understand that moments of partial awakening, particularly during segmented sleep, are perfect for initiating deliberate separations from the physical form. This occurs when the body remains dormant and weighted, but the mind can direct subtle movements of consciousness, enabling travel between realities. Segmented sleep patterns also enhance dream recollection and astral journey memory. Since midnight awakening brings recent dreams to the surface, recording or meditating on them becomes significantly easier before they dissipate. If you desire to experiment with this approach, here's a straightforward method. Rest normally, permitting the initial sleep phase to occur, typically lasting 4 to 5 hours. Upon natural awakening or gentle alarm activation, remain lying quietly, focusing on bodily sensations. Rather than immediately rising, allow your mind to stay relaxed, flowing between thoughts and imagery. Attempt to re-enter sleep consciously, maintaining the desire to achieve awareness within dreams or initiate deliberate projection. This minor modification to your rest cycle might unlock internal gateways you never imagined possible. Segmented sleep represents an ancient remembrance, a forgotten inheritance from when we understood that sleeping wasn't merely resting, but journeying between dimensions. Each night, without your complete awareness, you encounter other forms of consciousness. Some of these entities feel familiar, others remain entirely foreign. Yet every meeting carries intention and instruction. When discussing other consciousness forms, we're not exclusively referencing human spirits in subtle dimensions. You can connect with spiritual protectors, departed loved ones, family members, friends, or kindred souls who have completed their transition and occasionally return offering comfort or direction. Teachers and mentors who are elevated vibration consciousness, forms that educate, motivate, and reawaken forgotten memories of your authentic source. These connections can occur symbolically, encoded within imagery, or directly through conversations, physical contact, or even wordless knowledge transfers. It's typical to awaken with powerful sensations of having been accompanied, detecting particular fragrances, hearing voices upon awakening, or carrying unexplainable emotions throughout the day.
Now let's talk about humming with Hemisync and really combining the two modalities into one modality. So Hemisync, you're probably already familiar with the benefits: hemisphere synchronization, brainwave entrainment. Basically, you can take a scattered mind that's not focused, and you can use binaural beats to synchronize the hemispheres of your brain so that your brain is actually working as a cohesive unit, as a cohesive whole, almost like a row team that's rowing all in the same direction, as opposed to rowing in different directions at different speeds. Because scattered brainwaves are real. Like scattered brainwaves, that's how the brain tends to function. So when we do things like meditation, Hemisync, different practices that can really actually synchronize the brainwaves, you're getting your mind onto a holistic, focused, cohesive level. And then, the brainwave entrainment effect, you can get your brainwaves into alpha. You can shift your brainwaves into theta or into delta if you're needing to go to sleep. You can entrain your brainwaves quite easily using the rhythm of the binaural wobble. So you've got the brainwave entrainment, you've got the hemisphere synchronization, and then you add humming to that, and you add the nervous system regulation benefits, the stress relief benefits of humming. You add in the nitric oxide, you add in the oxytocin, the melatonin. There's a whole cascade of beneficial effects for your body